You're listening to a main feed episode. Go to patreon.com/Celtic Ligers where €5 a month gets you weekly full-length episodes, stray bonus content and access to the back catalogue. Also helps cover hosting and gives us money for sweeties. Thank you. Celtic Ligers.
Recorded 23rd of March 2025.
And that we're recording, and its time is 6 o'clock. It's 23rd of March.
We're in the same room.
We're in the same room, and there might be some sounds of mics moving around, cables clacking. That one doesn't do it because I think it's like a dynamic microphone or something.
Oh.
This one does though. Hear that?
You have to be careful.
I have to be careful.
Welcome to Celtic Ligers Home Edition. Bedroom Edition.
Bedroom Edition.
Brian and James fuck each other.
Yeah.
Edition.
Yeah.
We're in my bedroom. Does it smell?
No comment.
Does it smell?
No, it doesn't smell.
Does it smell?
I wouldn't say if it did, but it doesn't. It doesn't.
Wink if it smells.
I won't. You won't see. You won't see me winking because it doesn't smell.
Look out the window if it smells.
I'm not. I'm looking at my phone.
You looked out the window.
I'm looking right at my phone. It smells. You know what?
Smells.
It smells fine. It smells beautiful.
You heard it here, folks. My room smells. Ladies, come smell it yourself.
Oh. we don't have time to fuck around. This is going to be a tight 2 hours. So don't say anything that I'll have to cut out.
What time is it?
It's 6 o'clock.
We have so much time.
We have 2 hours to record it, and the train's at 8:50.
We have 2.25 hours.
But then I have to run to the platform.
Okay, well, we're at the Marxist fest. Okay, I'll be careful.
Well, which ones are we gonna do?
Well, you have two things to cover.
Two fucking massive stories.
Oh my god!
As soon as I said it,
crazy.
I knew that you were.
That is so insane.
What?
You should have seen it. We're going to talk about it behind the Patreon.
What?
A certain Garen Noon.
We're talking about behind the Patreon.
Yeah.
I guess so. I guess that's where.
This is a marketing strategy. But behind the pen. But we were just talking about Garen Noon, and Gareth was like, "It's so fucked up how you make fun of him." Oh my god! You were like, "This is not good. It's not good for you."
No, because it was so Ronan was saying I was surprised that you were having a pop at him for being fat. Okay, and then I was like, yeah, no, I think that's a bit. We should probably.
No way. You were like, I never did. That's all James.
Yeah, well, I also say
when we were introducing the topic, you go, "We have a great big massive pig of a project."
I did. I just said it, but since I said that, and you were using every opportunity to just turn. I was going to say
I didn't even take it.
All I'm saying is I was anticipating you taking the opportunity, and you didn't. So anyway, but the other thing is that I was super on edge because we were at a Marxism festival, and I thought people are going to overhear and they're going to think I'm a big bully, and I was I know
we are,
but I don't know why. But if it's in this environment here where I'm saying it and that I don't have to be held accountable, or I don't have to see the look on somebody's face where they're like, ugh. Even though I'll send out the episode, and if I think we've been mean, I get really anxious and upset about it. But I'm still not going to stop doing it, and I don't know why. I don't know what's going on there. Something. So yeah. I'm getting, yeah.
We're at a Marxist festival.
Yeah, so we went to the Marxism festival.
Behind the pen, we're talking about Garen Noon.
Yeah.
But before we're talking about the wonderful weekend we had at the Rebel Marxist Festival.
Can you tell me, I know you probably won't know this. You probably won't fucking know this. But is Rebel Rupture? What happened to Rupture?
It was just a problem with the left, man.
Yeah.
They eat.
It's a teaser for later on.
They eat each other.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
No, there's Rebel, there's Rupture.
Yeah.
What's Paul Murphy's thing?
That was Rise. Yeah, that's gone now. Rise merged with PBP, and they're now we're the Eco-Socialist Party.
But then you also had solidarity.
Yeah, solidarity. And yeah, that's it. I think there's just some independence then, you know.
Well, anyways, Rebel.
Yeah.
I think Rebel and Rupture are different.
I think Rupture must be gone. Also, I'm going to be straight with you. Rupture is a terrible name, and I'm sorry to say it.
Is it a magazine?
It was a magazine, but they also had like Rupture Radio, like a podcast and stuff. But then I was like, hadn't seen any podcast from Rupture in ages, and then suddenly I started to see Rebel everywhere. And then I found out that they had a podcast, and I was like, oh, and I started listening to it. All the same people from Rupture were on the Rebel thing, and I was like, okay, so I guess, do they change? I mean, I think Rebel is a bit better, you know, and then the branding looks a little bit more kind of eye-catching and exciting, even though I love the stuff for Rupture because it was kind of very like artsy and minimalist and whatnot. But I guess if you're trying to do a big splashy movement, it's probably, you know.
Yeah. So we were in Griffith College for the weekend.
Yeah.
So 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go to the first one.
No.
Because we were
Well, I didn't know. I thought, oh yeah, it starts on Saturday, and so I was like, when will I book my ticket? Oh yeah, I'll get in at 6 because then you're done work, and then I'll just meet up. And then I was like, oh wait, there's like a bunch of talks, and I just missed them all.
Yeah, I thought you had a reason or something.
No, I didn't have a. To be honest, like I thought, like, okay, you book the tickets and then you'll get some sort of itinerary or something. But it was like, here's a link to the Instagram, and then we had to like cock our heads to see what time it was on that, and then zooming in, and then the thing keeps snapping back at the freaking Instagram.
Yeah.
So you know.
So what do we do on Friday?
We went to Bobo's.
Oh yeah.
And then I don't think we did anything.
Okay. We strategized.
Yeah, we were looking at the talks we were going to go to, and we pretty much went to all the ones that we thought we were going to go to, bar one.
So
throw that over there, because it's setting off the thing.
So we woke up at a early 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I work.
Yeah.
During the week.
Look, I'm not, you know, I wasn't throwing any.
So these are the sacrifices we make.
Yeah, I was like, time to do some homework. Let's do it. Let's go to
That's really what it felt like.
Let's go to the homework conference. I loved it. I did actually love it. He's giving me a face. What I mean is that, like, I love the talks.
It's complicated.
It is complicated. It's like any of these things that you go to, you're just kind of like, you know. I'd compare it to, is this going to be unfair? Because there's some people going to be listening now. Because we were there promoting, we were talking about
half of them don't even like it.
That was the other one. People were coming over, hey, you did that podcast. And I was like, yeah, these bits are wrong with it.
Yeah,
like,
I don't listen to it anymore.
Yeah, oh, thank you.
So we went to our first talk of the day.
What was it?
Lough Neagh.
That was good. I loved the Lough. That guy just...
By Paul Drake Brasden.
No, that's not him. That's another guy.
By who?
I know his name is Porrick, but I don't know his last name. I can't remember. I have to get... Actually,
yeah, get it up there.
Fuck. I left my notes in the car.
Go get them.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll vamp. So you have to unlock the door with that.
Okay. Unlock the door with that.
It's like a physical key.
Yeah. My phone.
And shut the door behind you.
I will.
Don't let it hit you. So what's to be said about Marx, or has it already been said? He was German, I think. Don't know where he's from. Don't know when he was born, don't know when he died. Communist. And they celebrate him in Dublin at the Rebel Marxist Festival every year. So we heard about it on Instagram. Yeah, I made Gareth go. Gareth lives in Belfast now. So he came all the way down from Belfast to go, and he stayed at mine in Booterstown, where I live. Well, excuse me. And then we were like, it'll be a bit of a lads Marxism. And there was a series of talks, and then this is a teaser for later. A night out in the pub. And now they say a good Marxist shouldn't drink. But they do. And this is a little spoiler for later. Not in the episode, but in the series. We might be getting a certain man on the podcast. Let's just say, have you seen the film Gandhi? There's a little hint for you.
What?
Gandhi's stepson. I just dropped a little hint about a possible future guest.
Oh, nice.
And I said, if they've seen the film Gandhi,
Yeah.
his stepson.
Stepdad.
Son. Gandhi's stepson.
I didn't know he was in that movie.
He plays Gandhi.
Ben Kingsley.
Yeah, Ben Kingsley. Yeah, the whole time I was mixing up Jeremy Irons with Ben Kingsley. Like ever since I first heard that factoid about a certain man with a certain stepfather. And I was like, that must have been mad for Richard Boyd Barrett. It's like, your mom, famous actress, is like, I met someone, and then it comes like a guy wearing a rag.
Yeah.
He's like, I want you to meet,
Ben Kingsley in brown face.
Yeah. He's a very important friend of mine, and we're going to be seeing a lot of each other.
Yeah.
And I want you to get used to that. And this is his niece, who sleeps naked in bed with him. Did you ever hear that, by Gandhi?
No, I did not hear that.
He made his niece sleep in the bed with him naked to test his restraint.
Really?
Yeah, I do the same thing with, I think, a billy roll.
Yeah.
Like, if I can get through the night without eating this.
And I haven't achieved that once. Pork cairns.
Pork the lake cairns.
Yeah, so it's Lough Neagh,
Porridge
and then
cairns.
they go, 40% of Northern Ireland's drinking water comes from there. And you're like, so that's why we're going to pump like shit into it and dredge it. And it was just like, it was like a supervillain coming up with every single way that you could kill a lake.
So the talk was really good, but he did my least favourite introduction ever.
Yeah.
Where he was like, 40% of the thing is from there, the drinking water in Northern Ireland. Then he was like, and Cuchulainn, you know.
Yeah, when they go back to the dawn of time.
It's like, we get it, it's a lake. You don't need to be... It's not like, oh, I didn't give a fuck about the lake because it kept people alive.
Yeah.
But when you said Cuchulainn took a piss in it, now we got to keep it.
I think it's just to add more context. It's got cultural significance as well as everything
I know,
else.
I just have been a hater. But it was interesting. It's true that Cuchulainn, he said how the Isle of Man was made.
Yeah. Tell me where that island is. I gotta get there. Hang out with my bros on the Isle of Man.
What are they doing over there? It was funny because who's it owned by? The Earl of Shropshire,
Earl of Shaftesbury.
And I was like, I bet he'd love to go to the island. But anyway, he owns this lake, and he just owns it in a feudal way because it was like his great grandfather killed all the paddies who lived there. Yeah, these mixing paddies anyway. Yeah. And so in 500 years' time, my son can pump slurry direct. It was like, we joke about farmers loving slurry.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, this guy's literally like, let's put slurry in the drinking water.
I remember, I don't know, like they were saying pressure from the campaign made him sort of, but basically he was going like, yeah, you can buy the lake off me for the right price.
£12 million.
And then he was like, oh, actually, no, I'll give it to you for free. But also, that's not happening at all. But it was kind of thinking like, I don't know. It was just funny, just the kind of, just thinking of like that guy's mind, what it's like to be the Earl of Shaftesbury, where you're just murdering a lake and being like, hey, you like this fucking big old 40% of the drinking water? You like that? You want to?
I know. Like it was one of those things where it just seemed to have a very fundamental, seems like a very basic human instinct.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, here's all our drinking water. It's not just like mess with it needlessly, Because they pump slurry into it. Yeah. And then the other thing they do is they dredge the lake for sand. Yeah. So there's these big trawlers. And apparently the lake was originally like, I don't know, 2 meters deep or something. Maybe it was like 5 meters deep.
Yeah.
And now it's like 20.
Wow.
It's like really deep. It's like, surely you just know not to do that. So there's no eels.
It's filled with big algae.
Francis Brain would be devastated.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, we should probably mention that. You mentioned that on the latest episode of Liger Nation, our companion podcast.
On Aged Radio. 26th of every month.
Yes.
10 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Yeah. So cancel whatever you were planning to do.
Stay up late.
Yeah. If your mum will let you. And listen to James interview the greats. The real greats. But you were talking about that with Brian O'Toole. You mentioned the thing. And I was just thinking like, because I didn't know that I knew that Francis's dad had something to do with eels. Does he mind just putting his business out there? Is that really
his family business?
Is that really controversial? His dad's in the eel business.
It's something to be proud of.
Yeah. But anyway, the eels on Lough Neagh. Apparently there's a special type of heron that's only on Lough Neagh.
Yeah.
And then like, that's all dead. Well, they're all dying or dead or whatever. And
you said all the eels have legs now. The birds have scales.
Yeah, it's sick. It's weird like that, isn't it? Somehow the birds are becoming more like fish, and the fish are becoming more like birds. But he was going through it, and then he goes, "Oh yeah, that was it." So like, they dredged the lake.
Yeah.
And he goes, and first of all, they subsidize the dredging of the lake, so they get money to do that. They dredge the lake, and then royalties have to be paid to the Earl of Shaftesbury for every ton of whatever's dredged.
Glacial sand.
And then they were like, oh yeah, and now it's being used for data centers. You're like, oh great, oh great, oh great, oh great, oh great.
I went on a date with someone who worked in a data center. Yeah, she was like, they use lots of sand.
Yeah.
To manage airflow.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I think you told me that, but I don't think you told me on mic, so it's good information for people.
On mic.
On mic. Mick, is there anything there? Mick Barry, he wasn't there. Noticeable by his absence.
Yeah, silence was deafening. So that was good.
Yeah, we were like leaving, and it was like that British thing, like the way that they treat the North, where it's like, yeah, we're just going to build all the missiles there. Well, I know they build missiles on, the mainland UK, but the idea of like, there's going to be 8,000 missiles there, and it was like, it doesn't seem like a good idea for us. And they're like, I don't really care. That thing with Sellafield where they're just like, well, I heard that this happened, not sure whether it did, but that thing about Sellafield where a bunch of the waste, they just buried it up the north somewhere.
Yeah.
And then there's that bunker that's between the north and, there's like a thing in the water where they just dumped all these munitions after a war. I can't remember the name of it.
Beaufort's Dyke.
Then they were talking about how like Moy Park is dumping all their slurry into the pond. I don't know what to say. It just kind of beggars belief, doesn't it? Where you're just like, just the amount of disrespect. And then
kind of what changed. I don't know. I just remember leaving that and feeling like the world is fucked. We're all screwed. I don't know what to do with this information now.
Yeah.
I didn't feel particularly... I was like, yeah, well, we all kind of band together and we go up there and we get results. Now the Earl of Shaftesbury is kind of embarrassed about saying that he says he'll give it to you for free. I said, is he? No. But he feels like he has to say that. So we're making progress, Is that bad? I don't want to be doing that. I don't want anybody to be listening to this going like, well, fucking haters. Well, you do something. What are you doing? You're recording a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. I'm at this moment in time, I'm feeling very depressed.
Yeah.
So then the next one, I went to one for Ukraine. You went to the rent strike one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a rent strike. It was like a documentary made by CATU, Community Action Tenants Union.
Join now. CATU, yeah. Well, all of my kind of, all the talk about like, what do we even do? CATU are the ones who like proper inspire me.
Yeah.
I'm in like those chats and stuff, and for my once local branch in Cork. And I just feel pretty inspired by the support and solidarity and the stuff that they do, the actions that they take.
Yeah. What's good about them is you get thrown out of your house by your landlord, and then they'll just break back into the house sometimes. Yeah. So then someone's back in their house.
Yeah, yeah. So
they did a documentary back in I'm going to butcher this, but back in like the 70s, there was back when there was a lot of like council housing. And council were going to bring in, or the government were going to bring in a new rent pricing scheme. That was basically going to like increase the rents. And it was like proportioned to how much you made, but it was quite punitive. And the big thing was that, people had jobs and they were quite reliant on overtime. So the rent was like, I don't know, 30% of your wage.
Yeah.
But it included overtime. And it was also gross. So it was before you were taxed.
Right.
So it was just quite a law. And didn't give people a lot of breathing room.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a guy, what was his name? I don't know out of it. I mean, there were a couple of leaders, but one who seemed quite central to it was...
Well, his name is organically coming to me. Is it coming into...
Matt Larkin.
Okay.
Of course. So it was like a worldwide, republic-wide thing.
Yeah.
And there's something like 100,000 members. 100,000 houses involved by the height of it. It was organised by a group called NATO.
Yeah, I remember that. That was funny. The good NATO.
Yeah.
National Action Tenants Organisation or something, I'd imagine.
Something like that, yeah.
National Association of Tenants Organizations.
And yeah, they just withheld the rent. And a lot of the film was talking about the organisation. So what they did is they designated people from the organisation collected the rent and put it into a bank account. So the thing was like that they had the money to bargain with.
Yeah.
And then it also wouldn't leave people stuck with arrears.
Right,
Say after the strike ended, the accounts would be like, okay, now you owe us a year's rent.
Yeah.
And it was just like a whole thing about people coming together, and one thing that was interesting was that it wasn't all like good natured. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just like, it was serious. There was a lot of like convincing people.
Yeah.
Not everything operated perfectly, you know. Like money went missing and stuff like that. But like the goal was so important that it didn't collapse at those hurdles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if money went missing, people were like, "Oh, we have to solve that."
Yeah.
Through whatever way. It's not like, "Oh, let's give up because there's a bit of corruption." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then there were some mad stories, like a woman getting thrown out of her flat, and like something like 150 guards turned up. The government really were against this strike, and they sort of chose this woman as a way of like breaking the back of it.
Yeah.
So they got 150 guards, but then like loads of people turned up, and just like I think there was a massive fight.
Yeah.
And people were like scaling the back of the building to get into the flat to defend her, and then eventually the guards evicted her illegally.
Yeah.
But then the next day she was back in.
Yeah.
And it sort of like the state had failed to break the spirit.
Yeah. There was several. This is from like a while back. I listened to Caseman's Leftovers interviewed Fia Tuberty. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So some of the things I have heard, one of the ones that there's like a very evocative photo of a woman throwing like a bucket of like slops over a bunch of guards. But the thing is that she wasn't, like let's say they didn't have any drainage in the buildings, so they had like a basin that your water would be in, so people would actually just be throwing it over the side anyway. Okay.
Oh right, yeah.
So she threw it over this guard deliberately, probably. Yeah. But obviously they couldn't get her on it because she's like, I was just disposing of it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So like if it had been like, I don't know, like she had a kettle or something, well, it would probably be a different thing altogether. But like, do you know what I mean? If it was,
there was some deniability.
Yeah. There's like she was, and then the other thing that I found fascinating was that they were kind of talking about the role of women in this, where it was like or the mothers who'd be at home, and they'd be like, kind of people who would be, if anybody was heading to pay the rent, or is it going to break the strike, you'd have a people who'd be able to hold somebody accountable.
Yeah.
And the other one was that they would organize like getaways and stuff. So they would use some of this like union money to organize like trips to the beach and stuff like that, which would create this sort of solidarity between everybody.
Yeah.
And that really fascinated me because we're so isolated at this moment in time. Like the idea of like trying to be like, what would I do for somebody else? And it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't. This is greedy, but like, I don't know whether I do all that much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to think I do a lot. But then when you see the stuff that people were willing to do back then, and it's like, why were you willing to do that? It's because these bonds were like formed because of
Because it wasn't necessarily organic. I mean, part of it was, but like, these were people who had all been moved from the tenements out to places like, Artane or Crumlin, or like places in Drogheda, down in Cork. But like, you weren't moved out with your whole family. So you were moved into a neighbourhood where you didn't necessarily know anyone.
Yeah.
So like, it was sort of between the creation of the suburb and the rent strike, like the community formed.
Yeah.
So like, it was in the tenements where everybody knew each other for generations.
Yeah.
You know? And then, it ended on an interesting note where one of the men was like, I bought my house. The council brought in the Let to Buy scheme.
Yeah.
Where you could, or whatever it was called, where you could eventually buy your council house. And everyone did it. And they did it for two reasons. It's like, one, to own a house was seen as good.
Yeah.
Like that was part of the inoculation of the state. And then the other thing was, they were like, the council's really going to do something mad now. Like, they're going to come down on us like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So like, let's get out of this system.
Yeah, like it's just, there's only so much you can tolerate where it's like, no, I give, like, it's not give, I'm not trying to be like, but like, would you blame anybody?
No.
Where it's like you were through all of that and it's like, okay, like I need some sort of nest egg or some sort of
some
anchor.
security.
Yeah, security. That's probably
And the guy goes, I don't know if that was the best thing for society.
Yeah.
Because now there's no bond.
Yeah.
Like, you've no like rallying or structure.
Yeah.
Because everyone's just a homeowner as opposed to a council
Yeah.
service user or whatever.
So now, a stupid question. Was there any interesting questions at the end of...
No. I think one of the ones we saw yesterday was the first time ever I've seen an interesting Q&A.
Which one was that?
The one where Alex asked a question.
Yeah, that was about
where it's like, when we were doing the Lough Neagh one, there was a guy, there's the whole talk about Lough Neagh, pretty detailed. And the guy puts up his hand and he's like, yeah, Lough Neagh is owned by the Earl of Shaftesbury and Boy Park. Like, he just repeated the whole lecture.
Yeah.
I was like, thank you for the comment. It's like
there was sometimes where there was comments that were added and you're like, oh, that kind of added clarity, or maybe it could prompt an interesting discussion, and it's nice to be part of this. And then there's people like, were you at the one of the last ones we were at? Yeah, with the guy got up. Do you remember he's like, I'm surprised at all of you that you didn't mention this one about. And then he gets up and he turns towards the audience and he's got the microphone in his hand. The biggest contributor, and he's like, I was like, sit your ass down.
Yeah, that was crazy. What was the socialists in Ukraine like?
So first of all, he started talking, and he was like talking so incredibly low, and like somebody would be like, somebody was wearing a raincoat in front of me, okay, and they shuffled in their chair, and I was like, shut the fuck up. He was talking so low, and then eventually like there was like an older woman there where she was like, speak up, and so then he's like, yeah, okay, and continued to speak in the same volume, and then a car drove past outside, and this guy ran over to close the window because it was drowning out the sound of your man talking.
Really?
And then some other guy in the front, in the second row, he went to, we can't hear a word you're saying. And so then he's like, oh, sorry. And then he didn't modify his voice at all. He just kept talking low. But so I just started writing stuff down. But I found it very fascinating, actually. It was really, really good. I wish I had his name now. I'll put it in later on in a text. I think it was Vladimir Lachenko. I could be wrong about that.
Vladimir Lachenko.
Let me see. Very cool. Was there any good stuff here? A lot of it is very just stray things that I heard. Russia has consolidated the ruling class. Yeah.
Fair play to them.
Yeah. Hey, I don't like everything they do, but
I like
I have to hand it to them there. What was the one? A
real perverted pleasure of mine is when I put up a story that does well.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at everyone who looks at
it. There was one thing that they had. Yeah, it was all about like, what is this? What is the point of this? Yeah, you should have paid €15, unwaged, because I'm presuming all year unwaged. You could have gone there, and what I'm reading out my notes, giving you content for free.
We've had another message in complaining.
About what?
Well, I shouldn't phrase it as complaining. Asking for the episode of Garrett Newton.
100,000 deserters are estimated to be in Ukraine. He's like, that's 10 or 20% deserting the army.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right, next talk.
Wait. I got some stuff here.
Did you ask a question?
I wanted to ask a question and I didn't, because I thought I sounded stupid. And then I realized I didn't sound stupid.
You were like, Trump and Putin are obviously gay.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have the only man as a leader?
Yeah. Will I bother with it? What am I doing here? What's going on?
Okay, next.
Sorry, everybody. I guess I couldn't hear it. Let's do, yeah, whatever. Fuck it. All right, what's the next one? The next one was what?
Some other thing. Okay, the next one was we leave that and we say hello to each other. And then
we went into a big panel, and then Richard Boyd Barrett was on it.
Screaming.
And yeah, he was screaming into a microphone. I was directly underneath the speaker, and I was like, I was dazed. I was
and then this feeds into a story later
Yeah.
But you saw a woman who was looking at a picture of Gary Noonan.
Are we going to say that one? Is that what's happening?
Needs to be said.
So I looked up. So like I'm getting bombarded with waves of like. Here's a criticism. There's a little bit of a criticism where it's like we need to stop Israel, and I'm like, agreed.
Yeah.
We need to like get over there and like Netanyahu we need to dismantle the Israeli state. It cannot be allowed to exist. I was like, yeah, I agreed. What? Why am I here? Like,
yeah. I found it a bit stirring, if I'm honest.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
What was the woman's name?
I can't remember.
Gotta
remember her name. But yeah, that was a bit of a wobble for me there. Where she was like, okay, what we should do is we should get Ireland and Norway. I can't remember. There's a bunch of motley crew of countries.
It was like Ireland, Norway, South Africa,
yeah, that was
and some other country. Sweden.
Yeah.
Was under UN control.
Yeah,
to send military into
Gaza. Yeah. And then she said, I'd like to see them kill those people. And I was like...
Say they'd love to.
I was kind of like, that sounds sort of sadistic of you, because they definitely would, you know?
Yeah.
And also, I wasn't a big fan of just like...
More military.
No, I just don't... Yeah, I just...
We have enough. We have too much military. That's the problem. Like, yeah, I thought, like, as a provocation, it's sort of like,
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing this?
Yes, for
like,
sure.
If you actually care, why aren't we?
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't want military sent anywhere.
Yeah.
And also, there are Irish people over there. There are non-Palestinians over there. They get bombed to bits all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you could say that UN, what is it? Red Cross.
Yeah, the Red Crescent.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It's like, that's a provocation.
Do you remember what was the one, I think Alex mentioned it, but it was like...
Gada Carmi.
You know the kitchen. Do you remember the kitchen? The World Kitchen. And then so they're driving through. So tell the IDF, yeah, we're driving through here, and we've got a marked car. You can see it on the roof. And they're like, gotcha. Literally, they just sent a missile, and then a bunch of people survived, got out into another van. The IDF just shot that van as well, and just killed everybody. And like all of the they were like, all of the norms have been completely violated. All of these things which were meant to be like kind of sacred world order stuff.
Yeah,
they just don't give a shit.
No, not at all. Like, that's like part of the fascist nature is a complete violation of norms.
Yeah.
So like, sending in the troops, it just reads a bit like, surely they won't violate this norm.
If you're going to position it like that, that's the wrong attitude. If you're saying, we should maybe do it as maybe a moral imperative.
Yeah.
Then I have an easier time getting with that. But also, like, I like, in theory, it's like, okay, all of oh shit.
Yeah, Wogart's floundering with his wires.
Yeah.
It's also like, the Irish government will just never do it.
Yeah, they will also never do it.
You might as well be like, Trump should send in American soldiers to...
Yeah.
Great. Like, he's just never doing it.
I think it's the weird, like, kind of still... People have a lot of difficulty realising that Micheál Martin doesn't give a shit about Gaza.
Yeah, it's...
The Irish government.
I know. It's funny when you run into someone from abroad and they're like, oh, Ireland is so good, or Palestine.
Yeah.
You're like, we're not. No. Please disabuse yourself of that idea. It's like, we're really not.
Yeah.
That's just good marketing.
That's why, like Francesca Albanese, she's been here during the week, and she just,
wonderful.
I know, it was so great to have her just like going, oh, but first of all, to differentiate the Irish government and the Irish people. She's like, the Irish people support Palestine and want you to be doing more, and you're doing nothing, And so, her screaming at people is very rewarding and fantastic. What was the point, though? I was going to say, like, imagine, like, where it's like, all of the downtrodden of the world, it's like we're rising up against colonialism and imperialism, okay?
Yeah.
We're all going to be, what was that? Bryce Belden went off and fought, he's a host of a podcast called TrueAnon, went off and fought with the Kurds.
Oh, yeah.
And it's stuff like that where it's like, I'm taking up your fight because I recognize common cause and we have to fight back against this thing, okay?
Yeah.
If you were doing it like that, but the fact that it's just so imperial minded, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't seem to be, it seems to be this thing of like, you should go into, funnily enough, be like human shields for the Gazans, you know, which is, you know, commendable if you're like willing to put your life on the line for somebody like you know what I mean? I commend you. But what I'm trying to say is that like, I'm not sure what's the end goal from something like that.
Yeah.
If there's not some like greater cause that you're rallying around, you know? Or like, anyway, so that was that. And also we kind of just said some of the stuff basically that Alex said in her comment.
Yeah.
So Alex
shout out Alex Day for making the first good question I've ever heard in the Q&A.
Yeah.
It was a very good question.
Yeah.
Which we just stole for content.
Yeah. We were like, here are some just thoughts we had off the top of our
But she was the one who was like, I think they'd be perfectly happy to bomb Irish soldiers. But I did think that speaker was quite good apart from the militarism thing.
Yeah.
Like, her thing was like, I mean, we'll elaborate on it more, but it was like, the time for talking is over.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you're acting, act.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I do think that the stuff about like, the people are like, well, what? Somebody I think asked, is there any like good Israelis or something like that?
Yeah, well, there was like a few. What, didn't he?
I can't remember. What he was trying to say was, look, how do we convince them?
Oh, yeah.
You know, how do we stop the carnage? And then she was like, well, you can't.
Yeah, I think it was like, it was also a question of like, if we stop the car, like if we, it's like, how do we deprogram them?
Yeah.
You know, essentially. And it's like, you can't do that. You can't change the individual mind.
Yeah.
But what you can do is
create the conditions to allow for that to happen.
Like, well, you do, if you completely remove the structure that allows them to act on those desires, it sort of takes the threat out of them. Whereas, like, what happened with the Nazis, you know, sure, they got rid of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
But then, sure, they let them start NATO.
Yeah.
And, like, work for America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we went to the pub.
There was like,
I
just want to say though about that stuff where it's like, yeah, we need to dismantle that, and then it's like, how, and like that's not even in, like that's not within our power to do even.
Yeah, but I think the point was like, there's an idea that you can reason with Israel. And I'm not saying they were advocating for that, but they were like, get rid of the idea that you can reason with them. The only answer is dismantling.
I completely agree.
They didn't have a solution for how to dismantle.
Yeah.
But I think the reason they kept saying it was to disabuse people of the idea that there could be like a liberal Zionism.
No, there isn't. Yeah, no, and I agree. But I'm wondering if like, you know, you're sitting there, okay, well, I want this carnage to stop. What are we doing? What are we doing? Oh, it's bad, and Netanyahu has to go, and the whole thing has to be dismantled. And you're like, agreed. So what do we do here?
What do we do?
And then it's like, well, can we get the Irish government to do anything? No, we can't. Okay.
Yeah. I kind of think of Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
They just like killed them all.
Yeah.
And then hired some of them.
Yeah.
Then we went to the pub. We found it very hard to socialise.
Oh my! Well,
like impossible.
Normally, I find it difficult to socialise, but then when you're in a room of other people who find it incredibly difficult to socialise, it also was not a good. But like, yeah.
Sometimes it was like chatting to ChatGPT or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, how do we end up here? No, we had some good conversations.
No, we had great. We had a good time.
We were talking to two people who had heard of the podcast and no longer listened. We'll put that in the maybe.
Yeah.
We were talking to.
Well, I was talking to Richard
Stuart
Boyd
Scully. We'll go.
Okay, fine.
Leave the big hitters to the Stuart Scully.
Who's that?
Okay.
I didn't talk to
him.
Okay,
we were talking to Richard Boyd Barr. We were talking to Stuart Scully for quite a while.
Who?
Fellow with the beard.
Oh, him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I just didn't know his name.
Then you were talking to Boyd Barrett.
I was a social butterfly. I was going around to plenty of people.
Yeah.
Getting my little PvP bird watching book out and be like, oh my god, it's Gino Kenny in the wild.
Yeah. You're talking. I went up to one person and it didn't go so well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Let's get your official thoughts on this.
Okay.
Right. So I never blame the woman. Right. I just want to put that out there. But I saw someone.
Ally.
They were looking at Garen Noon.
Yeah.
On the,
you didn't see that. I saw that.
Yeah, you saw it, but I saw her.
Yeah.
And then I went up and I said, I saw you were looking at Garen Noon.
And that, yeah, you made a complete fucking bollocks of me then, because when
yeah.
Anyway.
But then
listen, the reason it's important, okay, because it wasn't like, so we were in this big lecture hall, and then again bombarded with like Richard Boyd Barrett's microphone, like the speaker, like where hitting the, what is that, peaking, you know, where I'm just like dazed. Somebody in front of me took out noise cancelling headphones and put them on, and I was like, I wish. And no disrespect to Richard Boyd Barrett, future guest on the show, but the sounds in that, like if we'd been out on the steps as the GPO or something, I would have been like, let's do this. No, he really did not. And then anytime he was picking it up, I was like, oh god, oh jeez, am I sitting in the right spot? I'm not going to get like a blast.
Because the microphone kept cutting out as well. Yeah. I was like, that's such a relief. Like,
there's one point where Richard Boyd Barrett keeps going. He goes like, why does this keep happening to me? He was the only one where it seemed that this was happening to him, and I was like,
so you saw.
So I was like, kind of like looking around, like dazed, and I was like disassociating, and I saw this phone, and then there's been a very funny picture by this absolute dickhead called Niall O'Loughlin, who does these little portraits online. I don't know what the fuck. I think he must do like little, like, caricature, like he must do like comics for like the Independent or something, like he's kind of, I don't know what it is, but like something will happen like on like, you know, social media. He's like clued in on Twitter, so what happened, it'll be like, I don't know, something with Ukraine, and it'll be like Zelensky, and then he's just like, you know, beating the shit out of Trump or something like that, just the corniest shit imaginable. So then, you know, within a few hours he had like this disgusting portrait of Garen Noon.
I was saying, like, he was in support of him because it says, I stand with Garen. I was like, someone made that of me, I think they'd hate me. And
you got to see it for yourself. It's really something, but it's like horrible, bold, impact red font at the top going, I stand with Garen. And then you see his face, and it's like, oh, that is like him, but it's very unpleasant and digital. And it's got that, you know, he's like got the rosy red cheeks and all this. And but the other thing about it is, if you scroll down, look at his hand. This just like, oh, here's the face, and then I don't know, just put a hand in.
It's like Francis Bacon drew a picture of, you know, the one of like the Pope screaming in the chair. It's like that. It was such a wretched drawing. And so anyway, I looked over, and then I just saw somebody scrolling on their phone, and there was like a big picture, this big portrait of Garen Noon, like staring back at me from across the hall, and I was like I said, I was like, that's my chat. I sent that. No, wait, I didn't. That's her chat. She had that. And I was like, because I was like, her chat is like my chat. This is crazy. But then I was like, so we went to the pub, and I was like, I was thinking, her chat's like my chat too.
But I like, but like, I was like, hey, that was the one who was looking at the photo. She's like, oh, you should tell her. And I was like, no, I shouldn't. That would be weird to be like, I saw you from across the room looking at a photo of Garen Noon.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know, I was drinking, so I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. I'll just go over. So I went over, and I was like, hey, you were looking at a photo of Garen Noon? And she was like, yeah, like, he said that. And then I pointed over at James, and I was like, but I saw it. Like, why did you...
Yeah. So I got up, and I was like, wait, I saw you looking at a picture of Garen Noon. It must have been a very bizarre night for her. And we were chatting, and I thought we were getting on well.
Yeah.
And then she goes, oh, so what PvP branch are you in?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I'm in Dunleary. She's like, doesn't sound like you're very active.
Yeah.
And I was like, such a fucking like coward move, you know, just trying to be, no, I am, you know, like, I did all this stuff. It was like a light switch went off.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to recover. I was trying to be like, you know, I don't know, say some more stuff, whatever. Not to feel like a fucking fool, all right?
Wonder how long after it happened.
Yeah, imagine. This is true.
Is she just like, every lad in the pub's going to come up to me now? Why you looking at Gareth Noon?
Yeah. But I mean, if she was looking at a photo of Gareth Noon, I wouldn't have cared. It was the fact that she was looking at the hideous drawing of Gareth Noon, which was so funny to me.
Yeah.
And I was just imagining, I don't know, it was just like, it was like two chats passing each other where it's like, hey, you're like my friend's chat where we just bitch about this fucking oaf.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other one is that I was like, one time I was on a bus. This is true though, and I saw this person like on the aisle opposite, and they had their phone out, full screen, just looking at a picture of Frankie Muniz, and so I was like, it was kind of like that. She was like, oh, right, yeah, I guess it was.
Leave me alone.
And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna leave.
Now tell your friend to leave me alone. It took us a while to get going on the socialisation. Yeah. And then you were hitting Rich Boy Barrett. You were trying to do it for a while.
I was trying to, there was a guy there, and so he started going like, have you ever watched Paul Moran? And I was like, yeah, I watched him actually. And then Richard Boy Barrett was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is. And then he goes, yeah, he used to be a Marxist-Leninist, but now he's a Maoist. And then I'm just there like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just, and then the guy started trying to pitch him on Mao, and then he was like, I'm not really convinced by Mao.
And then you were talking to Gino Kenny.
I was.
The Prince.
Yeah.
The Prince of, where's he from? Lucan.
I don't know.
Not Lucan. What's the other one? The one who ever gets shot.
Finglas?
No. It's next to Lucan.
I don't know anything about it.
Let me look it up.
Dublin geography.
I just look up a man shot dead in
Dublin.
And then I'll go, oh, it was this place.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Where Dara Adelaide is.
Okay. Where is that? Was this of any use to anybody?
What?
No, on an event that we went to.
That's the whole reason we went, so we have to say it.
Well, what about we just went because we just thought there would be some interest in talks?
We didn't.
That is true. We did use the Patreon money to do this. People like field trips. They like hearing about what's going on out there.
Well, they like it so they don't have to.
Yeah.
Hey, we remember it so you don't have to.
Where's he now?
Is he? Yeah. How revolutionary is he? Clondalkin.
Nostalgia critic. Clondalkin. Okay. Noted.
Yeah. What were we saying? And then you were talking to Gino Kenny, Prince of Clondalkin.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I went to Adelaide's, for his electorate campaign for council. It was out in Clondalkin, and he had musicians. And when the musicians got going, people were going like, "Up the IRA!" It's like wrong party.
Yeah, there was a thing today which made me like. So there's some woman asked a question, in some fucking woman. What was it? I think it was in the panel thing we were at.
Love that show.
Or no, sorry, it wasn't.
Love that fucking show.
By the way, Celtic Ligers, the panel, is coming soon. I don't know when, but
2027.
we're organised. No, I'm going to book it. If I book the room.
Yeah.
Okay, fuck it.
Book it tomorrow.
Book it tomorrow. I will. Belfast, Dublin, or Cork? What are you thinking?
All of them.
Okay.
A tour.
We don't have enough listeners to do it.
There's so many listeners. He said.
We could do it in Cork because Chris was asking if we'd do something.
Let's do it in all three.
All right, fine. That's for a later date. Save this, whatever. Anyway, so there was it was the data centers stuff, and they were talking about colonialism and imperialism.
What was that?
This is today, one of the talks. I'm jumping ahead just a bit. You weren't there.
Well, we did it. Let's talk about the first one first.
No, I just want to say this because it was relating to something we were talking about, which is that somebody from the north just asked a question about what is it, the imperialism. I'd like to hear more on that, taking into account the occupied counties. All right, cool,
Yeah.
And then this guy, I swear to God, he's sitting in the second row. He just turns around and he goes, IRA. And then she's like, yeah, cool.
Stop talking to me.
It was I just thought it was the weirdest thing. It was why did you say that?
What prompted you to say that?
Because it had nothing to do. The only reason that you could have possibly said it is because she had a northern accent.
Literally.
And I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing here in this thing?
Yeah.
Like, what an ignorant fucking thing to say. I just felt so embarrassed in that moment. Like,
yeah, the women are probably having a hard time.
they fucking are, man.
Yeah.
You're just like, you know, I listen to my little dirtbag podcasts where all these like men are talking to each other about left-wing politics, and then all the fucking most of the comments were like men coming up and just being like, and another thing, and then they'll just repeat something that was in the panel already, do you know?
Yeah.
And we need to fight back, we need to do this, and you're just kind of like, okay, you know?
Yeah. One thing I liked was Odo Canavon was chairing one of the discussions. And a friend of mine, Catherine O'Keefe, said this, that when she's in a discussion group, she, as a woman, will just talk.
Yeah.
Even if what she says isn't, she feels like it's not properly formulated.
Yeah.
Because, like, men always just jump.
Yeah.
Men just shite on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then women feel like, oh, these guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, I liked when Owen said, like, it's mostly lads. It's all lads asking questions. Why don't we get a woman?
Mix it up a bit, yeah.
Because it was.
Yeah.
For most of the weekend was like not in terms of the speakers. It was a good mix, but in terms of Q&A, the lads were to the fore. Like,
yeah.
and they weren't like intellectually to the fore.
Honestly, like we should probably I'll build up to the data center one because the Q&As are also. I didn't write down anything with the Q&A, but like what would happen is it'd be like toss it over to the floor. I'll just say it now. So they have to toss it over the floor. This woman asked a question and she goes, "Hi, I just wanted to ask a few questions. How much is too much data centers? I know that we might need them in some capacity." She was like, "Could we?" You know, I know that they use clean water. Is there any reason they can't use dirty water or something like that? Like, why do we have to divert resource like that? Okay, thank you for the panel. Thank you for discussion. Hands over to like a lad, and then it's like, no, I'm, you know, just like getting ready, and then it was like, you know, they're like, I'm gonna tap the microphone when you're like going over, and they're like talking as long as the guy who was up there, and it's like, and you're not fucking saying anything, you know.
There were a couple of lads, and I swear to God, they were like, I just want to say 3 things.
Yeah.
3.
That was always funny where it was like, they're not even questions.
No.
And they're not even really contributions in any way because like, again, it's just reciting the information we've already heard and kind of emphasizing that we need to do something, and then it's like, I don't know. Anyway.
And it's not like, man, it's not like I'm saying they shouldn't be speaking, but they were just, there was a sense of like, I'll take up as much room as I like. You know what I mean?
There was like always this thing in my head where like I was like, oh, here's a thing that I'd like to say, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, just suppress that. Don't do it. Like I have it in me. You know?
Oh yeah. What was the one before the data centers?
It was an Eco-Socialism.
Oh yeah, there was a Finnish guy. A Norwegian guy.
Yeah, he's Norwegian, lives in Sweden.
What was his name again? I have him up here.
So it was Breach Smith, the Norwegian guy.
Let me get his name before you say the next guy.
Okay. Dum-de-dum, dum-de-dum.
Stale Horgensen.
And then Paris Marx, host of Tech Won't Save Us. And someone who simply must come on the... I was a little starstruck. I like Paris Marx.
Yeah, they spoke first, and they were talking about like... Oh no, sorry, Stale Horgensen talked first.
Yeah, and then had to leave immediately.
What?
And then had to leave immediately afterwards.
He was talking about like... It was like 9 or 10 thoughts on eco-socialism in Ireland.
Yeah.
In general. And it was a lot about like, I thought the most impressive thing he said was that capitalism won't prevent climate change.
Yeah.
But also climate change won't eradicate capitalism.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
It was, you know, because you're in your head, you're always like, when climate change comes about, there'll be like a fundamental rupture and everything will change.
Yeah.
Whereas no, he made the point that like, capitalism can thrive in crisis.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, we could have a system where the earth is fucked and we still live under a capitalist structure.
Yeah.
That was chilling.
Yeah. But he did the other one that he said that actually got linked in through to a bunch of the other talks, which I thought was an interesting. It was actually similar. Sorry, Richard Boyd Barrett said something in the Palestine one, where essentially all the contradictions are highlighted, so now they all become connected, and now it becomes easier to imagine that you can destroy them. Do you know?
Yeah.
So, which is sort of true, you know.
Yeah.
But it was. He said that about eco-socialism, that the climate crisis is in that it sort of unifies a lot of things, you know. I think that's what he. And one of the things he said anyway, just for later, put a point on it for later reference. He goes, degrowth. Basically, he was like, it's a bit of a dirty word, and we don't want to be pitching ourselves using degrowth. You know? Yeah,
and I think he had a good point. I know other people in the room didn't, but I feel like. The left are very bad at slogans. I'm just going to say it. Like the whole
Oh, you don't like rupture? You don't like the sound of something like bursting inside of you and you haven't to be rushed to the A&E?
defund the police. And then you say it, and then it's like, spend half the time being like, it's not literally get rid of the police.
Yeah.
It's like there was so much argument about what it meant. Whereas if you just said, fuck the police.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I know NWA came up with that. But it's just like, or Black Lives Matter. And I know people do this intentionally, like you can't come up with the perfect slogan because someone disagrees with you, they'll intentionally misconstrue it.
Yeah, like Antifa is now like standing for like militant lefties who just want to,
but who was next?
About that. The other one I was just thinking about is that, first of all, Black Lives Matter got kind of co-opted. You know, you can have like Kylie Jenner, or do a Pepsi ad with Black Lives Matter.
That's because they killed all the original organisers.
That's true as well. But the other one, apparently the original hashtag, except for a character limit, it was going to be Black Lives Matter 2. And I was like, think about how different that would have been. Like, oh, you're saying Black Lives Matter? Actually, all lives matter. And I was like, if that TOO had been there, it's a fickle thing, and you don't know what's going to take off either. Like, Me Too was one that that took off from nowhere. Also,
Me Too is a good one, a good slogan.
Yeah, it is.
They tried to do Time's Up.
Yeah.
No.
Well, Time's Up was also crooked. They were the ones, because a woman came. Now, whether she's reliable or not, I think maybe that's been brought into question. I'm not sure.
Against Biden?
Yeah.
I believe it.
I do believe it. But she said that Biden sexually assaulted her.
Yeah.
And she brought it to Time's Up, and they were like, well, actually, Biden's running for president. So probably axed that one. But anyway, whatever. I mean, there's nothing really about slogans. But I think that, like, the idea was that, like, degrowth. Like, no, we don't want to degrowth. Like, they all... He wasn't even saying that, though.
Yeah. Just not a particularly attractive slogan.
Yeah.
Because what guy saying, he made 2 points, and the first half was good, where he was like, people don't have anything.
Yeah.
So, like, degrowth isn't... It just makes people think, like, what are you going to lose?
Yeah, well, they were like, well, what are you going to lose being the often one? You know that, like, when somebody says, like, oh, we're going to degrowth, I was like, I don't think, like, Elon Musk is losing anything.
Yeah.
I know that I'm losing something.
Yeah.
So...
then there was Paris Marx.
Yeah, and they were... they're very good. Like, I just like them. I like... They... very concisely kind of just break stuff down, and... Yeah, I don't know. The podcast is great.
Yeah. Take one, save us. What was their points again?
I mean, this is it as well. Like I listen to all of these podcasts and they walk away and I'm like, got nothing. But also I was hungover. And I was like, talk about disassociating yesterday with Richard Boyd Barrett's voice pounding my ears. So very...
I think Paris Marx is talking about... took down a note of what they said. I like their moment of vulnerability. We'll have to move on to the
we have to, yeah. We're gonna hurt. Yeah. They're a moment of vulnerability where, like, at the end, they like.
They're talking about militarization of Canada.
Yeah,
and they were just going like, yeah, it's very freaky at the moment. So, like, emotionally, I feel like I'm pro-military, even though intellectually I know I'm not.
Yeah.
Didn't go down well in the room.
Did not go down well. There was a bunch of old ladies sitting next to us, and they were, and they were like moving around, getting real fucking front. And then Breach Smith, like Paris Marx didn't end on that. That was like the question. That was from the question section.
Oh yeah.
But Breach Smith went up afterwards, and she kind of was like, you could tell by her face and her kind of like, just put that one down a little bit, put a bit of stank on it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, She didn't throw them under the bus, but it was clear that it was like, well, I don't agree with that at all.
Their thing was that climate change is often pitched as a technological issue.
Yeah.
Like if we just construct the right technology through like electric cars or whatever, that climate change can be solved.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a structural issue. It's
Yeah.
a capitalist issue. And then Breach Smith, the one thing I remember, she's good, very irreverent.
She's great. She's like, so I heard her, because one of the talks got like rearranged, okay? And I saw her coming downstairs with Patrick Bresnan, right? And then she's coming up to one of the people organized, like, what's the deal? Like, she got like real, like, she's like somebody who's just like, seems to me like she doesn't really suffer fools.
Definitely not. But I liked how she was just so openly critical of the Greens.
Yeah.
And she made a comment where she said, I'm sort of paraphrasing here, but she said that the Greens have complete control over the the green movement.
Yeah.
But when they go into government, they don't address the root causes of climate change.
Yeah.
It's all about aesthetics and consumerism.
Yeah.
So they're not actually addressing like the market forces that create climate change.
Yeah.
Which is a very good point. Similar to a point that I think they made on Michael and Us about their own Green Party in Canada.
Yeah.
It was funny when Paris Marx was like, we have a Green Party and they're really bad, but luckily they're never going to get into power.
Yeah.
I wish too.
And then they opened up the floor to questions, and then that's when several men started like addressing the room.
There was one guy, it was such a funny argument. He was like, people have a lot to lose. And he's like, most things I like that make life good are unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's like, I love my things.
Yeah.
It really had a bang of like, using Funko Pops. But he was like Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love my games.
Yeah. There's someone at the back, and then they go like, I was kind of shocked about like, but they were like,
you didn't mention the military.
Oh no, that guy said that at the front. I'm talking about at the back. Somebody was like, no, the guy who I have a bone to pick with is running, but he was like talking like he was on Twitter, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
I was like, I've seen it in the fucking wild. This guy going like, I'm actually shocked that you didn't mention this thing. You know, like, what's your fucking like? He was coming out of hostile, but one of the first things he starts off with was like, should probably say that I'm not in PBP. It was almost like shot across the bow, and like, because there's a lot of self promotion of like people in PBP and people for profit are the only ones saying this, and we're gonna have registration at the door and all this. And there was a lot of like, just because I don't know. I mean, I don't have a problem with that because I think like, well, if you give a shit and you believe in like a political solution to it, then of course you're going to show up to a thing where a bunch of Marxists are and try to get people.
Like they're trying to build a movement, so you can't do that humbly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have to completely degrade yourself.
Yeah, like Connolly was probably doing the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't going.
Connolly's like, hey, join my Substack.
Yeah.
Imagine that. He'd probably be like that now. If the Brits hadn't fucking shot him. And they dressed him up, sat him in a chair, he couldn't even stand.
It would have been a dress.
It would have been a dress, and then they shot him.
They never get married first, though.
Yeah. So the person just started raging at like kind of. But either way, you know, they were. I'm kind of making it up like more than it was, but they were giving out about how like, no, we need degrowth, and I don't think that we should shy away from it. Like, we need to stop this kind of consumption and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Paris Marx's take on it was, yeah, you know, if you listen to any of my stuff, then you probably realize there's a lot of degrowth stuff in it, but I wouldn't come out front and center degrowth because people have already feeling the pinch and the hurt from austerity and a lot of other things. So it's going to be a hard sell to tell them to, but it doesn't mean that you can't explain it to people. And that was also what Breed Smith was saying. It was like,
she was talking about the Lough Neagh one. She was like, you can't just rock up to Lough Neagh and tell people about degrowth.
Yeah.
It's like you have to build consciousness around it.
Yeah. And I agree with it. I think a lot of people find that kind of objective. I think that's a lot of the parts of the left that hate PBP. They find that part sort of like annoying.
Yeah.
The kind of like, I found this guy. He's great. He's like a reply guy to Paul Murphy. Okay.
Yeah.
From the left. So he's like more radical left, and he's going like, but he basically, the way he talks about PBP is the way that we would talk about Labour.
Right.
He was like, you're just propping up this whole establishment, and you're just going into it for a fucking paycheck. And I was like, he's in opposition, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, like I keep following him and like looking at his posts because I'm just fascinated by the arguments.
It's such a batshit thing to say about Paul Murphy.
Yeah, I know. I live with Paul Murphy, like the biggest target for the far right, and it's just like, you're just in it for the fucking money, man.
Yeah.
It's like, he loves people hanging outside his house and threatening to kill his kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, speaking of big.
Oh, wait. What about the data centers? I don't get to talk about
We
that
don't
one.
have time.
Well, let me just talk about it real. Where's my fucking
fly
thing?
through it. You threw it on the ground.
I threw it on the ground.
That's why I thought you were done with it.
No, that thing. Hold on. I have another thing.
Yes. Looking. Wait, are you going to Connolly Station?
Yeah.
Oh, better again.
Why?
It's closer.
Oh, okay.
Taking out another smaller notebook.
Smaller notebook. This one was
With
so
bigger
fascinating.
ideas.
Patrick Bresnan posted this one.
What time is it?
No,
what? On the clock. On the thing. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Because we have to.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's a very interesting talk. He was just talking. Basically, what he was doing is he was linking. There was another guy there as well. I've forgotten his name. I'll put it in later.
Patrick Brody.
But they were talking about data centers and basically brought it back to the foundation of the state where we became independent, but we're still dependent on foreign powers for absolutely everything. And it's kind of ingrained in our... It was a really in-depth talk about just all of these different areas. They're writing a book. It's going to be coming out soon. I'll see if there's anything really interesting. I liked this quote where digital capitalism is a mine, not a cloud. So the idea is that when you think about the cloud, you think like, oh my God, look, it's limitless space. It's all just floating around us, I guess. That's what they're trying to sell you. It's not. It's data centers. It's infrastructure. It's all of these things that just destroy all of our ecosystem and all that, you know.
You should read James Bridle. He's an interesting book on technology, and it's like the design philosophy behind technology is always to hide it.
Yeah.
And it's like, even you go back to the early computers, when the military got involved, computers were massive, and you used to be able to like walk into them.
Yeah.
But like, when the military got involved, they wanted it all behind, like they wanted it all contained.
Yeah.
To hide it. Same philosophy with data centers, like you say.
Yeah. To obscure it. You kind of need to mystify it a bit.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the tech
to
stuff.
To like dematerialize it.
Yeah. But this one, do you know that the data centers currently they use a fifth of Ireland's electricity?
Currently?
Apparently. He was saying like, yeah, use a fifth of it. And they were comparing it to other countries. And he's like, in other countries, they use 1%, maybe 2%. In data centers in this country, use fifth of Ireland's electricity.
20%. Like,
yeah.
That's so insane.
It was astonishing. There were so many bits where they're just like...
Like, it really feels like...
Yeah.
They're like, the Funko Pop factory uses 25% of Ireland's electricity. It's like, what? For that? Because people always think like, oh, if you want to send an email, that's data center, you know?
Yeah.
We always use internet. No, it's like if you want a picture of like... Garfield as Muslim.
What would that look like? I'm going to pull that out now, actually. What was it? Data kind of thing. There's not really, there's too much to go into without that. But like,
give me one more.
Was there any? Yeah, I wish I'd taken down more notes. I was a bit soft in the head. I think that the thing that they were bringing up was about like who is, because somebody was asking like, again, like what's the optimum amount of data centers, and he was like, that's an interesting question, but maybe it's almost not the right question, you know, because it's like, who are the data centers for, you know?
Yeah.
There's all this stuff that's been decided about the internet without a look-in from anybody, and basically, apparently, like, you know, they were comparing the past with the present, you know, the kind of optimism of the new state and kind of like Sean Lamass's Ireland and like what's going to happen, Board Namona, Ardna Crusher, all this sort of stuff, versus now where it's like all the, like back in the past, that stuff was sort of being, like they were saying different points. They said it much better than I did, and like look out for their like fucking book. It's going to be great, I'm sure. But maybe we'll get them on the podcast actually to talk about it because it'd be fascinating. But the main thing that I just found very interesting is that they were basically saying that like they got like people were like in the past I was like, okay, well, who are the prime energy users and what are we building the infrastructure for? People, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas recently it's like, well, we have a lot of data centers now, so we now have to build the infrastructure for the data centers.
Yeah.
And they were like, why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Like, who is dictating that decision? Like, there's a handful of people who this benefits.
Yeah.
And they're just being catered to.
There's that book, Death from Irish Town, or Nobody Tried to Stop.
Yeah.
And he says that, like, he's talking about Charleville in Mayo. And he's like, you know, a town is dying when people stop becoming interested in infrastructural development.
Yeah, yeah.
He talks about a quarry that was built in, like, the 20s, and people were fascinated with it.
Yeah.
But then in the 50s or whatever, there was like a road being built and people couldn't care less.
Yeah, yeah.
Similar thing with data centers. Like, when, like, say, like, Ardna Crusher was built.
Yeah.
There was, like, a national interest in that.
Yeah.
Generating electricity for the people.
Yeah.
Whereas now with data centers, it's like you say, it's...
Yeah, it creates the jobs. But it's like it doesn't create that part where it's bringing a bunch of people together, or there's a vision, or there's a kind of...
it's not for us.
Yeah.
It's for some, like,
exactly.
hidden purpose.
Yeah.
The other thing he said that was interesting was that, like, you know, there are alternative models for AI now. Like, DeepSeek has shown that they can be more efficient. And use less water.
Yeah.
But, you know...
No, they use less GPU processing, allegedly. Although I was talking to Paris Marx afterwards, and they were saying that actually that might be slightly overblown.
Oh.
Well, here's what they said. What they said was like, look, we've proved that we can use less processing power for this, okay? So think about what we can do with all of this processing. Like, it still doesn't stop the data centers from being built. And they were the reason they were bringing it up, it was like, it's this idea that tech is like, you know, this other thing. It's kind of this benevolent thing, or, you know, whatever. Like, it's independent. But then it all comes back to fucking oil, you know?
Yes.
Because like, and the resources and all the stuff of colonialism, and that's what they were bringing up in this conversation, which is like, so let's say even if you knew that bit of information, like, oh, DeepSeek has, you know, requires less processing power. We need less data centers, okay? And then they go, well, we're going to build them anyway. Then you go, why are you building them? Because these guys get paid.
Yeah.
These guys get the money now, you know?
Yeah.
And there's this extraction that's taking place and these people that profit from it. And then you suddenly realize, oh, right, I'm an idiot. Like, it's all... And they were bringing it up as well about how it's all connected, obviously, and it's like it is a bit daunting, but it's like, you know, all of this stuff also ties in the military-industrial complex because of all the fucking cables we now have to protect underwater. You know, like,
I know the main takeaway from the weekend was just like it's all connected and it's so overwhelming.
Yeah,
but like I think the approach is, you know, it's like a many-headed hydra.
Yeah.
Many-headed eel from Lough Neagh.
Yeah.
You just choose one head to attack.
Well, I thought like I that was the part where I felt inspired, to be honest, where it's like it feels like, oh my God, there's all these different things that we need to do, and I need to address the climate, and I need to address this, and I need to address this, and then they go, no, you only need to address this one big fucking thing. And that sounds daunting, but it's an easier target than all of this other stuff. And here's the good news as well, because it's something that good news, in air quotes, you know, but like, because it makes everybody's lives miserable, okay?
Yeah.
It's easier to pitch this to people, to be like, look, you know, and it's a scary time to live in, but it's like, just the idea of like, know that there are answers and that maybe you can provide them for people, and we need to start working on that.
Yeah, and like whatever you address the underlying structure.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like if you're complaining about Lough Neagh, you don't just want the thing clean.
Yeah.
Obviously you do, but you want to address like the capitalist structure.
Yeah, how is this allowed to happen in the first place?
So like, anyway. Speaking of things like how is this allowed to happen?
Yeah, like so it was mad. So like somebody said, I can't remember, it might have been Zainab, might have been Mark Maloney. Garen Noon goes on Friday and he's like, here's a message, all right? People have been asking me to weigh in on...
Let's explain Garen Noon. We'll start from the start.
The rest of the episode is about Garen Noon and the anti-migrant sentiment in Ireland. It can be found on www.patreon.com/KeltyCligers.